Hello and welcome to Sudden Impact Family Style episode 208. I'm Jason.
And I'm Bill, and 52 times 4 is 208, right, Vic?
Yes? No.
So this is our 4th year anniversary.
Pretty much, yeah.
Wow.
That is a long time.
Congratulations, Jay.
Thank you. Congratulations to you as well.
It's been a fun 4 years. It's gone. When I thought about it, I can't believe how fast that's gone.
No, it's pretty crazy.
It's been real crazy.
Especially because the last year felt like either 6 months or 6 years, depending on the day. So,
Yeah. Well, let's start with some NCAA basketball, because it's been kind of interesting. I've really loved watching Oklahoma State play because Kate Cunningham has really, as I said last week on the show, has really turned into a real high lottery pick in my mind. I didn't see a lot the first half of the year, but as he played, and he's gotten all the guys involved, they played really, really well. And they finished second in the tournament. They beat Baylor, which nobody had done, and Baylor got 2 losses. They beat in the last 6 weeks, they beat 11 top 20 teams in the bracket.
which is great, yeah.
Which is great. So I'm excited to see what they can do. I like the coach. I like the players. I think they'll play well. They just, if they run into a big center, they're in trouble. And Texas last night had 2 really big players, and they played really, really well. So we'll see. But they're fun. I love the Zags. They're a fun team to watch. So Ohio State knocked off Michigan.
We saw COVID knocked out Duke and Kansas.
If somebody gets sick, it could knock off the top seed right away. You get in some really odd results.
Yeah. Which means if it's a year like that, where Duke is taken out of by COVID, Kansas may be taken out by COVID, some of the big blue blood schools, Kentucky had a down year, that this would be the kind of year that Gonzaga would win, and then people would call it an asterisk year.
But they'd also put an asterisk year in that all the things you had to overcome to win. So I like
True.
that part of it too.
As LeBron said, he feels like the toughest title he won was the COVID bubble team.
Oh yeah, I agree. Because you were at work. It's like a job. You never went anywhere.
It's true.
You went back to your house and went to your job. Back to your house, went to your job.
Except their house was a private resort with golf clubs and fancy dinners,
Yeah.
And they got to play, a Miami team without Dragic, who was one of their better players last year. And, I know everybody was dealing with stress, and some teams handled it far better than others, but, there was some key injuries that you didn't have to, he didn't have to go through Golden State. Kevin Durant wasn't, there was a lot of,
Yeah.
You could argue there was a lot of, advantages in that year as well.
Well, transitioning from the tournament, the brackets are tonight, so everybody watch and get your brackets ready. We'll have more to talk about because we'll be through round 1 next week when we do the show. But
I find typically that first weekend is the best weekend too. I think everybody feels that way, but
yeah, that's where you have David and Goliath, and you have some really good upsets, and you get to see teams you've not seen before, and you can develop a rooting interest even if you don't have one. Based either on your brackets or a game that you watched or a player that you saw, and I like all that.
yeah. It's hard not to fall in love with like the Coastal Carolinas of the world, which is, a school you've never heard of with a bunch of players you've never heard of dunking all over the place and
My recent trip to the Final Four, which was in San Antonio, I got to see Loyola.
Yeah.
And that made it a lot of fun with Sister Jean and that team overachieving and playing really well.
And that was just a fun story.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of fun pseudo stories, last night in the NBA we had 5 triple doubles.
Which is pretty incredible. 5 in one night.
5 in one night. 2 in one game. So, and just, the NBA's been, not unsurprisingly, but it's been really fun to watch this year.
My biggest surprise is that Brooklyn has gelled this well.
And they don't even have KD.
Yeah, they've gelled pretty well, and I'm surprised. I thought, when you put that many star players together, there's an adjustment period. But, really, the Lakers with Antonio Davis last year, they gelled really quickly.
They did.
And it's that's so I guess it can be done. When you say that much talent, it's just going to work out.
Well, I think everybody looks back to the first year in Miami with the big three,
Yeah,
and
which took a while.
it took a while. And then you look at
Yeah,
Brooklyn, and you had James Harden, and now we're seeing the James Harden we've asked for years, which is a guy that is setting up his teammates and using his basketball IQ and not dribbling the ball for 23 seconds. We're seeing a way different James Harden. Kyrie Irving is always an amazing player when he's on the court playing well, but he's the way he's playing. He's playing MVP level this year, and then you look at he didn't actually speak about why he took the time off, but maybe that time off was really good for him. And it's a team that been without Kevin Durant, and that is a little worrisome moving forward
yeah, it is.
because you got the history of 7-footers over 30 with leg and foot injuries has just not ever been good, and he's really key to them winning. But I mean, it doesn't seem like it matters right now. They are just incredible. And with Joel Embiid going
The
down,
Phoenix Suns story,
yeah,
which I think, to me, that's a huge story because it's going to keep Milwaukee from winning the title because they didn't do what they needed to do and go out and get Chris Paul. That's what they needed to do, and they didn't do it. And I was frankly shocked when Phoenix did.
yeah.
Yeah, I know Phoenix had a lot of cap room, and I know they had a nice young team, and they were trying to get some stability around. But I was shocked when A, that he went to Phoenix, and B, that Phoenix made a play for him.
Well, you also
It's worked out.
yeah, and as great as Chris Paul has been over the years, he has he didn't get along with Blake Griffin famously. Obviously, didn't get along with Harden, and you have one of the better young talents in the league. Your star, and you wondered if he would go in there and rub him the wrong way, and then Phoenix would have been stuck with an old man Chris Paul and stars wanting to leave that team. But it's been the opposite. They've just gelled. They look great. With Anthony Davis out, the Clippers still being the Clippers, they're in play for the 1 seed at this point. Sad, incredibly so.
I know. It has really been a story.
And with 2 weeks to the trade deadline, you have to wonder, like, is this going to be, anything going to happen? Or is something real, like...
Well, are there any players you're keeping your eye on that you think are going to move? That could be a game changer?
I think that's the problem. I think you could see, like, remember the year the Celtics got P.J. Tucker? And P.J. Tucker was, like, that one last missing piece that got the big three over the top. I can see those little kind of trades that we're not going to notice, on the surface. But, I mean, you look at the names thrown about, like Bradley Beal doesn't seem like he's going anywhere. And he would be probably the biggest fish to land. And then they talk about Victor Oladipo, but Oladipo is in a contract year. You're going to bring some guy in after the All-Star break who's playing to get a bigger contract when the year expires. So I don't know if I would want to touch Oladipo if I'm most teams. And, And then I guess the one piece that could move would be Lowry out of Toronto. Because Toronto seems like they would do him a favor. He's going to be a free agent at the end of the year. He's probably the all-time greatest Raptor. And, he's been a key to that franchise. He's won a championship. Like, if he went somewhere like Philadelphia, Joel Embiid gets healthy, that could be the game changer to help them over Brooklyn.
That would be a good trade.
But, now you got Embiid hurt. I don't know what they would require. Would you give up Maxey and a pick? What does Toronto want? But Toronto does seem like, you think about some of the hockey trades when a guy's in his late 30s and the team isn't going anywhere and they just sort of are like, you're going to be a free agent next year anyway. Would you like to go somewhere? You've done so much for our organization. And it seems like Toronto is that sort of team that would do that from a PR standpoint, sort of the anti-Houston Texans, to, spill another sport. And that Lowry would be the guy they would do that for.
One of the teams I'm interested in is Minnesota. There's 2 schools of thought. One is if they, they probably get the number 1 pick. I think they've only won 8 games.
But not guaranteed with the new system, the anti-tanking system.
But they're going to have a really high pick.
Yes.
Again. And, do they trade Karl Anthony Towns? Because a lot of people think that system with the than Anthony Edwards and Karl-Anthony Towns. It's not that system. You need to either have one or the other style of play. And so you trade Karl-Anthony Towns, you get another nice piece and a pick, and then you add whatever your draft pick is going to be this year, and that's the only way you get the team back on track.
I do agree.
Watching that scenario.
I also feel like, Towns has been in the league, I think, 7 or 8 years at this point, even though he's only like 26.
Mm-hmm.
But as talented as he is, and again, you have a 7-foot big man who's not quite Joel Embiid or Anthony Davis, but he's right below them. He's a 7-footer with 3-point range. He's got some dribbling skills. He can pass. But he's been on that team losing for 7 years. And it doesn't seem like he's like the greatest leader in the world. And it just might be one of those situations where if Minnesota trades him and he plays really well, it'll look like Minnesota lost the trade, at least up front, depending on what they get. But I feel like they're not going to win the trade by keeping him either. Like, I just feel like, they're just like, two nice people that are married that just don't get along anymore. I think the best thing for both parties might be for him to move on.
Yeah, so, when's the trade deadline? It's
like 10 days away, 11 days away.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see. I mean, if somebody feels they're close,
and,
go all in.
Well, apparently Minnesota's in love with...
It's harder. It's harder to take a big man and get him adapted in your system so quickly.
Yeah, and apparently Minnesota is trying really hard to get John Collins from the Hawks. So, I don't know what, another sort of, big man that shoots and doesn't play a lot of defense. So I'm not sure exactly what they would do with that on their team. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it is a weird one.
And again, PJ Tucker in Houston, I know people keep throwing his name around, but he looks pretty washed at 36. I don't know what he's coming in and doing for your team.
But then again, that's a really bad team.
It's a really bad team, and maybe he's just not motivated. And LaMarcus Aldridge looks like he'll be available for people. But again, like, if you're Brooklyn, is that a guy you want to sign if he gets bought out, or do you want to try to hold out and see if, because apparently Andre Drummond might end up on the market. There's a lot of buyout guys that, again, nobody I think that can swing everything. But if you're Brooklyn and a big man gets bought out that can at least give you some quality defensive minutes and 6 fouls against Joel Embiid in Eastern Conference Finals, and then again against Anthony Davis, assuming you play them, that would be pretty huge for a team that may not even need him. It would be a nice luxury to have.
Oh, yeah. I agree with that 100%. I think that's a good strategy, in fact. You double down on, you get 12 fouls or even 18 fouls, depending on who your third guy is.
Yeah.
That's the way to go.
And as much as, I thought, the Gasol signing in LA was going to be a positive thing, he looks pretty washed too. So I know the Lakers are looking to add a little size. And then, we can't go without mentioning, MVP candidate Jokic in Denver, because it looks a little bit like, they have a lot of young pieces. Again, that GM has been phenomenal in Denver.
Yeah.
And, they've had to get rid of guys like Beasley, and they've got a few other guys now that aren't playing. And assuming you keep MPJ, you keep Murray, like, who can you add as that one extra piece to that team? But I think they have some weapons to go out and get somebody. But I'm not sure what their timeline is. Is Michael Porter, Murray, and Jokic are also young. I don't know how much you want to leverage your future for, this year.
I guess we come down if you really believe that you could make a run in the West to get to the finals. That you think you can overtake Phoenix in LA. Then it's worth rolling the dice.
Yeah.
If you doubt you can do that, then it doesn't make sense.
And what's sad for them is the guy that they let go, who now might be traded out of Detroit too. Green what's his face from Oklahoma City that they got in the trade. He might be the guy that they really needed. A big 6'8" wing that can switch on D. He would have been Jeremiah Grant might have been the perfect fit for them, and they let him go. But they kind of used his money on other players, so it's hard to say. And again, you got the injury to Davis, injury to Embiid, injury to Durant. So you got 3 big injuries happening all at the same time. And then obviously we got, my current home team of New Orleans with, does Ball get traded even though he's been playing better lately? Does JJ Redick help anybody? And then, I've heard other people grumbling that, sort of like Karl-Anthony Towns up in Minnesota, that maybe Zion and Brandon Ingram are not the best pairing as far as as good as they are, they're not the best fit together. But that would probably be an off-season trade more so than an in-season trade.
You know what? I've always thought J.J. Redick is an intriguing piece going back to the Chicago Bulls era where Steve Kerr was the J.J. Redick.
Yeah.
And I always think if you've got somebody out there that can really free up your middle, like if he went back to Philadelphia, that would be a good play. Because free up some more stuff inside.
And I think...
But, he's a great outside shooter. And, I mean, he's a hustler. He's a scrapper. But he's getting a little long in the tooth. But, I mean, maybe the Lakers.
Yeah, and with a guy like that, you have to wonder, he's a pending free agent. He's 36. Like you said, he's a little long in the tooth of his playing career. And if you're New Orleans, you already have so many draft picks.
Yeah.
And if you're another team, what are you willing to give up to get JJ? And if you're New Orleans, like, is it even, unless, you really like JJ and he wants to leave, like, what are you getting by letting him go? Like, what is worth to, what's the max value you could get that would be worth trading him, I guess, is what I would say.
Sure.
Because you probably don't want to bring a contract back in that's going to be on the books for more than this year. And it's hard to imagine, you're not really desperate for draft picks, and especially the kind of picks you'd be getting. So, I just don't know. But again, like you said, with all the injuries and this being a crazy year and a shortened season, that if you're at Denver or you're somebody that thinks you're close, maybe just push some chips on the table and just go for it.
Yeah, you got to believe you're close. You got to believe you're close. Boston's been quiet this year.
And they have the
about the Nets, since the trade and since the free agent signings and everything else. But Boston's still kind of hanging around. They've got some injuries.
And as people have reported for the last year, people rarely use trade exemptions. But Boston does have a $28 million trade exemption on their roster right now. So they can afford to bring somebody in. And just a matter of, do they do it?
And what do they need to overcome Philadelphia?
Yeah. Well, I mean, like everybody, they could use another big wing, just, because they kind of need what they lost, which is Gordon Hayward. And he's playing fantastic for Charlotte, who was also a surprise team this year.
It's an about-time story, though.
It is, but it's also, I know when we talked about the draft, basically a year ago, neither one of us were all that enthusiastic about LaMelo Ball. And he has proven just about the entire world wrong. He's probably easily Rookie of the Year, and he looks absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, he has really surprised me and shocked me.
And you got a guy on his team like Malik Monk, who, came out of Kentucky, and they were like, sort of maybe a more athletic J.J. Redick, who just wasn't performing, and he's been on fire the last few months. Hayward, who couldn't stay healthy in Boston, looks a really nice piece down there. They're not only in the playoff hunt, but I've heard they're buyers in the trade market too. I don't know how much you want to go in on that team right now, but that's it's pretty exciting. So the NBA, like I said, it's, who would you vote for MVP right now?
Wow, that's a great question. I like Jokic.
I like Jokic a lot. Now, another guy that's having a phenomenal year again. Who is?
He'd be my top 5, but just because of the impact he's had.
Yeah.
But Jokic is LeBron. You can't discount LeBron.
No.
Kyrie Irving looks really, really good. And I didn't expect that.
Now, I always have trouble with this one because I've held it against other players in the past, but one guy who is having another phenomenal year and they're creeping back into, potentially first place in the East again is Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is back-to-back MVP plus All-Star MVP, but a guy his team is flamed out for 2 consecutive seasons in the playoffs. And I know people are like, it's a regular season award, but sort of the same way I felt about Harden and Russ. Like, you can have your 1 year, but if you flame out in the playoffs, I don't feel like I can vote for you again.
Agreed. You expect more.
Yeah.
And then you question leadership.
Right. And that's why I can't imagine voters voting for, as much as I love Giannis, like, I just don't see them giving him another award when he hasn't even been to, like, the conference, done much in the playoffs.
I don't see that. That's why I didn't mention him in my mix.
But statistically, he's having, another absolutely incredible year.
Yeah. We want to talk a little NFL.
Always.
Since you follow the NFL so closely, what are your stories you're watching right now?
Well, I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to stop talking about the two quarterbacks and Watson and Wilson and whether they're going to. Because the Seattle situation, like the more you hear about it, and I don't know if you've listened to the players coming out, but all those knocks on Russ from the past about how Russ is sort of a yes man, really close with the owners, not super well liked in the locker room. That seems to have come out a little bit more because you have some former Seattle players that basically, when they won, it was this Legion of Boom,
Yeah,
obviously with Russell Wilson, and he's obviously a top five quarterback in the league, but I forget it was the Michael Robinson who people liked and respect a lot was on that Super Bowl winning team as the fullback. Basically said, you know, Russ has gotten paid twice by Seattle. They got rid of all the other alphas, They got rid of the Shermans and the people that were outspoken, and they've given him pretty much everything he wants. And it's like, what else does Russ want? And he's basically said, too, if Russ wants it, then Russ needs to say it. No more of this passive aggressive, I'm not looking to be traded, but if I was, here's 5 teams I'd go with. I mean, that's not exactly, they question his leadership. And I think if you're Seattle, you got some nice pieces, but if you could get a nice haul for him back, I don't think you'd mind. You won when Ross was on the rookie deal.
yeah.
And if you're Pete Carroll, maybe you're looking at some of these guys coming in. You're like, we get the right guy, the right contract. We just, reset. And then obviously,
And the state of Texas are still maintaining the stance that he's our quarterback, but I don't think he thinks he's our quarterback. So I just don't know. That's just not going to change. I don't think there's any way in hell he stays in Houston.
I did learn something new about the NFL this week. And that is, if you wait to trade on draft night, it makes one more year in the futures picks eligible. So you could have a first even further down the road. So right now, I think you can trade up to 2023. If you wait till draft night, you can trade up to 2024. So if you're the Texans, that could be a potential extra first round pick down the road. Or if you're the Seahawks. So, I mean, that could be part of the, part of the discussion. And again, I think there's a lot of really good deals if you're the Texans. And I think, as people have pointed out, you hear players say that distractions aren't as big a deal as the media likes to make it out to be, because the media needs stories and everything else. But that Deshaun Watson would be, you don't want that hanging over your offseason. You don't want that going, if you're trying to move forward as this team with a new GM and everybody else, then, you got to go with it. Take the best deal. And like I said, I would have a little bit of mea culpa on my part. I know that owner's not going to do that. But I would be trying to salvage my reputation among players and other free agents down the line. We screwed up this way. We're not going to screw up like this again, and try to become more of a players' organization. Because we've seen it work.
Like we said, we talk the story every week, and we keep waiting for some kind of culmination. And to me, go move on, because you need to be planning for the draft, and you can't plan if you really think in your own deluded mind this guy's gonna be your quarterback. You got to be making plans for the season, and if he's not a part of your plan, then what's your plan?
Yeah, you're screwing your coach over and your GM. I mean, it just makes a lot of sense. I have heard a weird story. This will be our Steeler Minute. That apparently the Steelers are going to offer Juju a contract, and they'll let him take that contract around and see if he can beat it.
That's interesting, because that would give him some comp, right? Well, that would dictate what the comp is, right?
Yeah, well, I think both he and Bud Dupree would both end up as third-round compensatory picks. They're both really good players. I mean, incredibly productive players that I think will be productive in other people's systems. I think the Steelers, and again, we can, I won't, berate all their contract, but I mean, they're in a position right now where, they just signed Ray McLeod, but now you have 4 wide receivers under contract, and honestly, your best receiver since Antonio Brown by far statistically has been Juju Smith-Schuster.
Mm-hmm.
And if you lose him, you hope James Washington can come in, but I mean, they're in.
For some reason, Ben doesn't throw to him, and They'll throw it to him 6 times. They'll catch 6 balls, and he won't get another ball for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and he also
I'm
seems
still
like,
mystified by it.
and he seems to sit on the bench a lot too. So I'm not sure what's going. Because it seems I don't quite understand. I've never understood that one because I always felt like he should get way more PT than he does. And it seems like not just the Steelers, but other teams are in a position where this is a very much with the cap going down. It's very much a haves and haves not year as far as cap space goes, and I think it's just going to be hard to retain those those good free agents because somebody's going to be able to offer them just a little bit more money, and you're not going to be competing for that.
Right.
And like I said, I think that's the long term effect. Finishing my Steeler thought is that you cut Ben Roethlisberger this year, you save $20 million. You kept him, you save 14. But you have $10 million in dead cap money over the next 2 seasons. And again, that's $5 million a year, and that's $5 million a year. That's either an entire player, or that's an extension, or that's keeping this free agent instead of losing to another team. So
Yeah. I don't want to go to I don't want to talk about Roethlisberger anymore. I love what he did for us.
yeah,
But I was ready to cut ties and move on. And it just seems like we're still just prolonging. It's like the dentist saying that tooth needs to come out. And you say, well, it doesn't really hurt me. And you keep the tooth, and then you end up getting a tooth pulled later on anyhow.
yeah, with maybe some damage to your jawline or something. Yeah, and it does also sound like Justin Fields is sort of popping back up the list, and then Trey Lance now after his pro day, people seem to be in love with that guy again, and maybe Zach Wilson's not the second best quarterback.
Yeah, what to say.
It just bounces around. And again, it seems like, the draft pretty much starts at pick 2. And we see what happens from there.
What are we about 6 weeks away from the draft?
About 6 weeks away.
Always a fun week.
It really is. And again, I think football more than every other, I guess even more so than basketball. Because if you're in the NBA, you get a lottery pick. And in the last few years, unless you're picking in the top 5, despite what could happen, you're never that excited if you got, if you're the Celtics and you pick James Naismith 13th overall, you don't feel a lot of hope. Whereas in the NFL draft, like anybody you get in the first 3 rounds, you get really excited for.
Sure, because they're going to play.
They're going to play, and, it just seems like the football, baseball draft is so hit and miss. And hockey, sometimes you're drafting, 17, 18-year-old players from, Sweden you've never actually seen play other than highlights, and then you're not going to really see them make an impact in the NHL for a couple of years. But football, you're hoping your top 3 or 4 guys that you pick in the draft are coming ready to contribute. So I think it makes the draft even more special because and especially if you're a college football fan, which you typically are if you're an NFL fan, you know who these guys are, and you're like, I can't believe that guy dropped to us. It's going to be so great. And sometimes it's lime is sweet, and you're really disappointed.
Yeah, I was reading, the Tampa Bay paper was doing a bunch of analysis of linebackers in case they lost Shaq Barrett.
Yeah.
And the guy from Texas I really like. He dominates the game. But I thought the guy that Oklahoma had, I can't remember his name, that came back toward the end of the year. He missed like 7 or 8 games. And he was a beast those last 2 or 3 games. And they had that, and also like Oklahoma's running back, that the guy that transferred from Ohio State.
Yeah.
And they didn't have him rated as high as I thought he should go.
Well, yeah, and again, you never know, because if you're a team, maybe you're putting out you're throwing some negatives on him so that the hope that he falls to you in the later rounds, and all the little games people play, or you're overrating players in the hopes that you get them hyped up, and other GMs and owners get excited about them, and you really don't care about them. So it's it's the chess game beside the chess game, but again, it's no matter who the Steelers pick, I'll be excited. Yeah, I'll be excited for.
What do you got? What was your entertainment moment this week?
I've been in a true crime / whatever Woody Allen's crime documentary have been on HBO.
Yeah, that's been good. Well done.
It's really well done, and it it's hard to imagine anything could make him look good. But his side, I know you said that his wife, who was his daughter, came out and supported him and defended him, but he's looked just awful throughout this, and
even the video never looks good, does it?
No, it doesn't.
He looks like a charter definition of a pedophile in the video.
He does. And again, I think if you're him, you've got to, I'm sure he's got to be producing his own. And like I said, They both apparently were very paranoid. He and Mia Farrow were both taping each other's phone calls. But Woody does not come off well on those phone calls either.
No,
He
doesn't.
comes off as really vindictive and hurtful, and and she come. I mean, again, it's a documentary from her point of view, but Mia Farrow comes off as like just a wonderful lady and woman and mom in this show.
Agreed.
And
Agreed.
the kids seem to support that 100%, and Woody just looks really, really bad. So
Yeah, and I mean, it's like when he sued for custody. I mean, why would those kids even want to go there?
and some of them didn't. Like some of his adopted middle children were like, no, I never want to see that guy again. So
Well, I mean, if you can watch it on HBO on demand, you can watch it on HBO Max. The final episode is tonight, 4
yes.
parts. So, it's been really, really well done. HBO's done some really nice documentaries this year.
And then we're doing the free trial of AMC
I'm looking
Plus.
forward to City on a Hill on Showtime when it comes
Yeah.
back for the second season. And I thought that's really well. And again, I'm enjoying the Stanley Tucci tour of Italy.
Nice.
That will make you hungry in the first 5 minutes of the show.
Yeah, those shows can be dangerous to watch. And shout out to, if you have Amazon, you can get a free 7-day trial of AMC Plus. AMC Plus, you get IFC, Sundance, AMC, and Shudder, the horror network. And if you're, we've been in a true crime documentary thing again, just like that SNL sketch, and we watched the Preppy murder, which they said was the trial of the century before OJ was the trial of the century. And it's about, a good-looking rich Manhattan guy that kills a girl in Central Park and freely admits it, and you get to watch the crazy explanation he has that they show the actual interrogation footage. And then you just see the way the trial was done. And a lot of, you also learn about a lot of good things. Like, basically, their defense was she was the aggressor and blamed the victim. And they tried to talk about her past sexual history, and it led to a lot of legislation that is hopefully, moving in a direction where you can't do horrible things like this. But it's a pretty, and then, like I said, it was called The Trial of the Century Before OJ, so it was pretty fascinating, and it's a pretty quick watch, and I think that was on AMC.
Okay.
I'd never heard of it before, so,
I've got a couple of food moments, both barbecue related, as a matter of fact. I won't talk much about Bedlam because I've talked about that one before in Oklahoma City. But we went over and saw a friend of ours in Tulsa yesterday, and there's a place in Tulsa called Barn Co. And we had to take, he took it, bought it, and took it and brought it back to his house. And the ribs, the brisket, and the pork were all on a 1 to 10, 9 plus.
wow.
Just outstanding. No matter what you picked up, it was really good. Had a real good taste to it, good texture. But you know what, Jason? I used Head Country sauce that we used to buy.
Oh, okay.
And I've always liked that sauce, so I didn't use the Burntco sauce, so I can't comment on it, but I love the Head Country. I might stop at the grocery store on the way home to get a bottle.
Nice.
And then one thing, I'll give a food moment for Mom. One of their sides was grilled potato salad. And she liked it because potatoes were crispy and crunchy, and it was all, it was potato salad, but it really wasn't. It was like a different kind of a thing. And that looked really good.
And then this is,
Those were outstanding.
and I'll give a preview to next week's food moment. Today is 3.14, March 14th, or Pie Day. So, people should be eating pie if they can. And that comes in the form of pizza, pot. There's many kinds of pies that aren't just, sweet. There's savory pies as well, especially if you come from, European countries. And there's a place down here we saw on Yelp that's available through one of our food delivery apps called Fry and Pie. And it's a place that makes French fry dishes and mini pies is all they make at this place. And I think we're going to order some mini pies later today. Probably not the fry part, but just the mini pies. And they have like 18 varieties, and people that know me know that I would probably eat like 2 of them because most of them are too fancy for me. But there's some very interesting pies. If you're in New Orleans, look up Fry and Pie. And the fries are like fresh cut fries that are just covered in everything imaginable. But I don't think that was going to deliver well or handle a trip. So.
And we talked last week on the show that for Pie Day we had ordered 2 pies from 2 brown paper bag apple pies from the Elegant Farmer through Goldbelly, and one is caramel apple and one is blueberry apple. We're going to have one of those this week when we get back from Oklahoma.
Yes, and I've always liked apple pie, but in a weird way, this place has sort of ruined other apple pies for me. That's how good that apple pie is.
Yeah, it's shockingly good. I
It,
mean, it just the crust is phenomenal. You actually scrape the goo off the paper bag.
yeah,
That's
it's
good.
well seasoned. The apples are. I mean, every part of it is just it. Like I feel like with most foods, if you ask me to name my favorite, I could give you one, but I'm probably gonna name like four or five others. Is like honorable mentions or close seconds, and with this one, I don't think there's a close second. Like it's honestly one of the best pies I've ever eaten my entire life. So
No, now they have cherry apple, they have blueberry apple, they have rhubarb apple. They've got a number of different ones now, so it's obviously been successful for them.
very much so.
And I guess I want to sign up by saying that we're in Stillwater, and we were at the Cowboys' new baseball stadium, O'Brate Stadium. It's a great college baseball facility. It's beautiful. I posted a picture on Twitter last night, and it's just gorgeous. It's really nice, and it kind of reminds me of why I always argue that college baseball should be a spring-summer game, because it would be a really good thing for people to be able to go out in the summer if you don't have a minor league baseball team in your area and go out and watch college baseball in the summer. The kids play in the summer anyhow. They go to those Cape Cod leagues and other places.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't have to worry about the bad weather in the north and northeast and upper Midwest. And you could play a really good baseball season. So, again, a plug for that. I'm still an advocate of that.
Yeah. Well, I think that's going to about do it for this week. Thanks everybody tuning in. Hopefully the audio's been better with the new microphone. We've heard from some people that it has been, so that's good.
Yeah.
And again, contact us on Twitter, Facebook, anywhere, and just let us know what you think, and let us know how we can improve, and let us know what you want to hear us talk about. And it doesn't have to be sports related, although we like that part. But any other questions you
And again,
have.
next year starts our first year, our first episode of year 5 next week.
And I will have updates eventually on Top Shot, but nothing really has happened since last week. So.
Oh, that's right. I did want to mention that Jason got me all fired up on his Top Shot thing. And so I was watching a Today Show, and there's this artist that did a digital photograph every day and then just released a collage of all the digital photographs. So a digital collage, and he had Christie's auction it off, and it went for $69 million. So if you're listening to this, Google digital art $69 million and read the story.
And I would say, if I've learned one thing over my many decades on this planet now, it can be summed up. There's an episode of It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia where Charlie invents kitten mittens, which are just mittens for your kitten. And two of the characters are like, that's really stupid. No one's ever going to buy that. And Dennis says, people love dumb shit. And I think with a lot of this stuff, I mean, just because it sounds really stupid to you doesn't mean you couldn't make money on it. So,
Which goes to the classic Pet Rock.
yeah, just people love dumb shit, and they're going to keep putting it out, and people are going to keep buying it and paying ridiculous amounts of money for it. So, no idea is too dumb, apparently.
But read this story on the $69 million digital art, and it will shock you.
Yes.
All right, everybody, we'll talk next week.